Transferable skills.
From Cackle Media, this is Transferable Skills. I'm Noah Mishkin. Today's guest is David Strulowitz, who shares his skills journey from tax law into trust and transparency. This is a completely different format. Today's episode is the first of hopefully many more in the future in-person live episodes. I did it because David challenged me to do it, knowing that we'd have a lot better chemistry and energy in a room together. And he was correct. So I hope you enjoy this episode. There's going to be a lot of very esoteric, bizarre, abstract concepts. It was a very spiritual conversation. And it's fitting because David really weaves his spirituality into his personal life, into his professional life, and into his mindfulness. Enjoy. David, it's great to have you here.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you pushed me actually. I perfect for this show. The theme of this podcast is transferable skills. You asked if we would do it in person because there's just a lot more energy in person, and I agree with you. And I was apprehensive. I'm going to use this as the push I needed to force myself to do it, to use the skills that I have in order to enhance the quality of this episode and this conversation. So thank you for pushing me outside of my comfort zone to make today happen.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Where was your career at the beginning and what were you doing?
I look at it like I have like a right brain and a left brain. And by the way, had you said to me 20 years ago, you know, you have a right brain, left brain, I'd be like, whatever. I wasn't zoned in on that at all, but it was my left brain that was really taking over. So like I literally was an accounting major undergrad. I went to law school and then I got a master of laws and taxation. And I was in my career initially working in accounting and law. And, you know, it's all left brain. Yeah, there's analysis, but it was all about, you know, the numbers or drafting documents. And even when I was working at a law firm, we still had to look at numbers and analysis. And that's what tax law is a blend of both understanding the law and understanding the impact that the law has on the numbers and what the outcomes are for people.
How unique is that?
It's a great question. I think they kind of align, but I don't think there's a lot of people who do it, but there are plenty of people. I think the more interesting thing for me was discovering I had a right brain and how significant it was and how I had avoided the influence of right brain. And by that, I mean even as an undergrad, I was really intrigued by the psychology courses I took. And that can be very quantitatively oriented, but I didn't really see it that way. But I'm like, psychology, what kind of a job is that? So like, I kind of blew it up. I'm like, well, what could I do where I would really have much more of a concrete career path? And I think that's really what drove me in that direction. And so I think naturally in Western society, certainly, it's very materialistic. And I was so much more focused on the material aspects of what I was doing and less focused on the deeper spiritual aspects of what I was doing. And that's been a theme that I think continues to today.
Yeah. I also discovered psychology in undergrad, and I actually went into psychology 101 as a skeptic. And I'm like, I'm going to take this class ironically. And I ended up taking like 5 undergrad classes in psychology, loving it because what I really gained from those classes was understanding human beings and how we operate, think, and behave. And that's a universal skill.
Yes. And important, we're interacting with people all the time. And how we show up determines what results come from those interactions. And we also know that when we don't have interaction, we make assumptions about people and circumstances that are not informed by actually interacting with them. It's like you had to go and take psychology to really understand what it was. You had preconceived notions. I mean, we all did. Preconceived notions about what psychology was all about. And then you start, you all of a sudden you're doing it and you're studying it and you open up to it. And it's like, oh my God, all these things I didn't know. I mean, that's to be the trajectory of our lives in general. All the things I don't know. And it's the paradox that I've discovered at this point in my life that the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. So I went to law school right out of undergrad to BU Law. So then I was like, I ended up getting a job with right now it's the Big Four. At the time it was the Big 8 public accounting firms in their tax department in New York City. Mm-hmm. and I had applied for and was admitted to NYU's graduate tax law program.
It's funny when you say LLM.
Sounds like I'm talking about somebody else.
You don't identify anymore as that person?
I mean, at some level I do, but I think no.
Why?
Don't. I think it was all left brain, and I think I identify today much more with the qualitative aspects of life and not the quantitative. They're important. You have to pay your bills and you have to show up at the dentist's office on time, but I'm really trying to stay in the flow and make better decisions on what is in alignment with who I am and where I'm going.
Where'd you get that mindset?
I really think it's just like one of those blessings that you get is like an expanded consciousness, an expanded insight. And for me, it's all about realizing, you know, the more I learn, the more I don't know. And I'm constantly striving to just grasp life from a deeper perspective and what's really important. And the numbers are important, but they're not nearly as important as the quality of the life you live and also your ability to have a positive impact on the people around you.
You describe discovering or realizing that you had a right brain. Sometimes you look back and you say, I recognize this now in hindsight that I was always this way from a young age. That's
the mind blower of it. Like I remember, we're talking, I remember like in grammar school, like doing art projects. We had art class. I don't know if they give them now, but we were painting, whatever. And I remember the art teacher was like, you know, very complimentary of what I did. Now, I didn't see it that way. I had no baseline, but it makes the point of, and there were things, other experiences I had as a kid, which I remember now, probably not all of them. And that is like the intuitive experiences I had, like the idea of having a premonition.
So tell me more.
Okay. So I remember distinctly at a couple different points, the realization of something that hadn't happened yet. The classic example is like my parents were coming back they'd gone to Mexico for vacation. They left me with my aunt and uncle and at least one of my siblings. So I couldn't have been more than 8, 9, or 10. And I remember, and they called, they were at the airport and they were, you know, there was no cell phones. They called from the airport and they're on the way to come pick us up. And I had this popped in my head. Oh my God, they bought me a gold ring with my initials on it.
You had that in your head.
Yeah, and then they showed up, and that was the gift that they brought back from Mexico. Like, where did I get that from? And so I was saying to myself at the time, where I get it from? There was no one to talk to about that.
Right.
Had I grown up in a different culture, that placed emphasis on tapping into, you know, the messages that the universe is giving you, I would have had an outlet and someone to talk to about that. But I just thought I was strange.
Those might be two separate things. You might still be strange.
I am strange. No, I think we're both strange. That's not the issue. But you have that's strangest, if you will, for lack of a better. I mean, that is what we in our personal growth have to lean more heavily into. That's our unique gifts.
Well, we often dismiss those things that we have in these premonitions, as the term you use, or these feelings, this hunch, this instinct, regardless of how clear they might be to us. In our consciousness, we often will dismiss them and we will label them as something different, like, oh, I'm tired, I'm hungry, or something that's easy to excuse. But when you're able to tap deeper into your subconscious, and that's one of the many reasons I am a big fan of meditation and therapy. These are all forms of basically digging deeper and becoming more sensitive and aware of some of the things that we've been ignoring.
Right. I want to take it one step further because I think it's important, and it's a realization I have had that I've struggled with in the past couple of years, and that is from a different perspective, it's not really a premonition. It's a deeper now.
I need to know.
So there's a spiritual idea that time is a function of physicality, that time doesn't really exist. What do you mean? There's a past and there's a future. Yeah, I know, but you're always in the present. The only real experience that you have is in the present moment, and you're only ever having a present moment experience. Because from a Kabbalistic spiritual perspective, that's the only thing that matters is what you're doing in the present. That's the only experience you're ever having. And so there are multiple things going on at the same time. And your premonition is just seeing that deeper reality. It's going to play out because we live in a world that does have linearity. But when you're connecting to soul, when you're connecting to, the creator, you're seeing that deeper present moment. So all a premonition is, we term a premonition, premonition, but in reality, it's just a deeper now.
Yeah, people talk about it sometimes tongue in cheek, but sometimes in seriousness, like the multiverse.
Yes.
We talk about 100%. The different
100%.
layers, and it isn't just linear. I mean, time is a construct. It's first of all, time is relative to our atmosphere, our environment, and our solar system.
The ability to deconstruct situations is a real skill.
Yeah.
Because you come in, whether you're a business consultant or in my role as helping people with their finances, they're operating under a set of frameworks and mindset. They can't see a way of kind of deconstructing it and looking at a different way. I think it's one of my top skills is my ability to see a situation, deconstruct it, and look at it from a more abstract perspective, and then kind of put it back together again in a way that complements what's going on for people. If I had to pick a superpower, I think that's one of the things that I'm really able to do that, people will hire me to do. Yeah. I don't think they look at it that way, but I think that's what I'm doing.
I don't think we look at it that way typically because we think of finances, any part of your career, whether it's law or finance, we think of these things as being very rigid, very linear, and within the limitations and construct of what our system is dictating. We've been prescribed this, here's a few options, and the concept or the idea of being creative around that is often very foreign.
And that's the power of connecting to your right brain. There's always a workaround, but I need to take a step back and is that really what's going on? Now, I study a lot of Zohar. The Zohar are the teachings of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai from, the Second Temple period. He and his son, Rabbi Elazar, there was a death warrant issued on Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai because he was a student of Rabbi Akiva, and he went into hiding for 13 years. He was in a cave with his son for 13 years. The story is that while they were in there, a river sprout, as did a tree that fed them fruit. And they had water, and they buried themselves in the sand because they only had one pair of clothing. And every day, Moses came to them and taught them what later became the Zohar. That's the understanding. In modern circles, that's not widely accepted. In traditional circles, that's the deep truth.
Why? Why isn't it?
Because in modern times, it's the scientific method, it's modern scholarship, it's very surface. And so the point that, going back to my point, is that in the Zohar, there's no conflict. There's just sharing.
This is your path towards understanding text and law and Bible is mirroring your profession too.
The way I'm looking at it is different. I know that they're relying on that, they're bringing that verse because they know the internal energy, the internal consciousness of that verse is aligning with helping to explain. They know there's a connection. They can see the deeper connection that we can't see because we're not at their level. They're so tapped into their intuitive sense.
Do you believe that we're able to tap into that today? Or
yeah, we can. I don't know that we can tap into the level that they did. These were the most enlightened sages that ever walked the face of the earth.
Right.
So are we at the level? No. But can we tap into that deeper understanding, that what I would refer to, it's not just me, as the internal energy, the consciousness behind what that verse represents? Can we do that? Yes, we can do that. But you got to be open to it. Consciousness is everything. And we know, and science backs this up now. We're sitting in a room that looks concrete, that looks like everything is in a form. It's got mass, whatever, but it's molecules, it's energy. Our brain collapses it so that we can navigate it. That's what our brain is helping us do. So, but that doesn't mean that it's not important to understand it is all energy. It is all energy. And when you unpack it in that way, you open up greater possibilities. And it's not just in looking at the room. It's looking at life. It's looking at a person. Like people show up in your life and you're like, why is he acting that way? And what I have come to the question I've come to ask is not why is he acting that way, but what happened to him? Mm-hmm. It's a much deeper way of looking at life and people and circumstances. Like what happened to him that he shows up that way? And it forces one to inject much more compassion and understanding and more connection and more unity. And that is what the world needs. The world presents as fragmented. That's an illusion. We're all leaves on the same tree, literally.
Yeah, when you talk about the world being fragmented, it's typically because of those surface level values or perspectives. And then, so that might be socioeconomic, political, geo. It could be a whole bunch of things that are influencing some of your interests, opinions, and behavior. Instead of like criticizing this individual, say the question is, what happened to them before?
You're able to view things from an abstract perspective.
Yeah.
And so that, again, helps to open up possibilities all the time. And it's like, you're calling it your monkey brain. We both have monkey brains. But I don't want to, and that's helpful to unpack, but it's also important to kind of quiet that down. Because arguably, why is it that some great ideas pop into my head when I'm in the shower? Why the shower?
I know why. It's the last sacred place where you're not distracted by any other outside information input.
Okay, so true, but like what's going on in the shower? Well, I'm just enjoying the water. So like my mind is open.
It's meditative.
It's meditative. Absolutely.
100%. Even you see today, even when people are waiting for their elevator to arrive, they pull out their phone and look.
Yeah, well now, right.
Now. And there's so much external sensory that's being input in everywhere you look. So in college, you studied finance, tax, and you went to law school afterwards.
Accounting, yes, and then law school, and then advanced degree in taxation. Yeah,
okay,
in tax law. And then I went to work for an accounting firm in a tax department. I went to work for a law firm doing estate planning and tax work. And then I took a stint in a family business.
What was it?
The business was sales and manufacture and sale of automotive accessories, aftermarket accessories. It was a family business, not my family. It was my in-laws' business. And I really wanted to be in business. I kind of had enough of the technical stuff. And I learned a tremendous amount there. We were selling retailers across the country, automotive specific, and then general merchandise who had automotive departments. But I learned a lot about sales.
Who trained you?
Nobody. It was all on the job training.
Trial by fire.
Yeah.
Tell me about that transition and what you kind of leveraged from your background. I mean, finance, accounting.
But really didn't really matter. I mean, yeah, the sales and the numbers were important. It was more about understanding distribution and how to tap into it. Like how to maintain relationships, work relationships. You know, buyers would get fired and you'd want to be nice to them because they're going to land someplace else and buy your product. And, you know, it was like, so it was a lot, there was a lot of relationship there. And I didn't really know that because I didn't have any training and I didn't have any exposure to that. I had done sales as a kid. I was selling Fuller Brush door to door as a summer job because you didn't have to work Shabbos and you could name your own hours. So like, you know, you would knock on a door and we had a free gift and that's how we got in.
What was the gift?
It was one of two things. It was either a vegetable brush or a soap holder, like a
little dish.
Well, it was more than a dish. It was something you put in the dish to keep the soap elevated so it
wasn't
wet.
In the wet.
Yeah. So it would last longer. So both these had tremendous utility. I mean, I thought the soap dish holder had more utility personally, but people like the brush too. And you'd open the door, they'd answer the door and say, listen, I have a free gift today if you look at my catalog.
How old were you?
16. And I did it with my cousin. We'd work opposite sides of the street.
Nice.
Yeah. And
your associate.
But it was more of a partnership, but those are products that sell themselves. as opposed to other products that that have to be sold. So most of the work I'm doing now is with people who are retiring. So did they save for retirement? If they haven't saved for retirement, I really can't even help them. But like I'm helping them transition from my income was coming from the payroll or from the business that I owned. And now where's my income? How am I covering my expenses? So now it's coming from my savings. And that's a huge transition. And as I like to remind people, when you're doing something for the first time, how many times you get it right?
Right.
But I've done this, multiple times. So like that is an expertise that I bring. It's a repeatable, task.
Okay. The obvious thing that everybody wants to, anyone in finance, anyone in insurance, will tell you is it's never too early to start saving and planning. That's the first thing.
That's true.
Everyone will also tell you the principle of their first paycheck, start putting aside. Doesn't matter how much, it's creating the behavior patterns. Okay, those things we know, whether people choose to take action on those known principles. What else would you suggest are tips and advice that you give somebody younger than who you're typically talking to that would help them?
Well, unfortunately, emotions play a big part in decision making.
Tell me more.
Well, I really think that this company is going to just light the world on fire, and I'm going to buy it now. Or this crypto, it's going to, it's the future. And people get caught up in the emotion. We all do. The emotions are good. Passion is important, but you need to really temper emotion when you're making decisions about numbers, because numbers don't care about your feelings ultimately.
Right. So actually,
facts don't either, but the numbers even more don't care about, feelings don't really have a role. You really have, so that's one really important piece of advice. Whatever your nest egg is, don't let your emotions control what is the prudent investor would do, what the prudent person would do. Like, what is the most appropriate under these circumstances? And I see that a lot. I run into that a lot. And so part of what I'm always imposing on the relationship, at least in my role, I'm coming out, I'm saying this is what is most appropriate.
So you're helping people with investments and their portfolio.
And I'm also helping them identify or articulate what's important to them. That's one of the most important things I do initially is like, what's important to you?
Outside of risk tolerance, what else would be a factor?
Who's depending on you? What do we put in place for them? And in what ways are they depending on you? What is it that, what ways do you want to give back or not give back? How long do you want to work?
Are you talking to people as they're heading into retirement or after?
Well, at that point, it's too late. We know when they want to stop working. They're heading into retirement. I mean, ideally, in an ideal world, I'd like 20 years to help them get there.
Yeah.
But sometimes even 10 years. I'm like, I'll be like with people, look, we need to come up with a plan for the next 10 years. And the other thing that I understand and one of the skills that I bring is because I've worked on connecting with people. I think I've always had an ability to connect with people. Again, didn't realize that was a unique skill. I just didn't.
Right.
When you're young, you have this perspective. There's not a lot of self-evaluation. You're never taking a step back and looking at yourself from an objective perspective. But it's important because the more you can see yourself from an objective perspective, the better you'll be able to see others from a more objective perspective. Like objectivity is really important. If you want to be able to take a step back, you got to try and find a way to objectively look at what's going on. And that does remove emotions, and it does remove hangups, and it does remove unhelpful mindsets. It's one of the things that I bring to a situation when I'm working with someone is like take a step back, and I'm bringing the benefit of working with a lot of people and seeing multiple mindsets. So like, which one is it that you have? Is it something different? Let's see. It's always a reflection of who you are.
Right.
And you are always the priority, not me. I'm not the priority. I'm just the facilitator.
Right. Okay, let's talk about the facilitator skill set. How do you do what you do? How do you know what you're doing?
Well, part of it is I've been doing it for a long time, but when I was new at it, I would approach every situation like here's another learning experience, there's another opportunity to learn. And even when I don't think things went the way I wanted to, I'd say to myself, I think this is a really important skill. It may not have worked out well that time, but perhaps it didn't work out well that time because there's another opportunity coming that's much larger, and I can use the learning from that situation and apply it to a much more important situation. I always tell myself that. When things don't turn out well, you get upset.
Yeah.
And when you get upset, you're limiting your ability to process because you're pouring all this energy into upset. So like, how do I turn that into a positive so that I can move on? And, part of life is like, you're going to get upset.
Right.
So the more you embrace the upset, the discomfort, the pain, the quicker you can process through it and, move on.
Yeah.
Another huge, huge skill. I'm open to possibilities, and I'm open to guidance, and I'm open to asking for help, and I'm open to hearing varied perspectives. I'm open to hearing conflicting perspectives.
But you're also doing that work like you described, learning from what didn't work in the past. A lot of people don't do a retrospective. They don't go back and say, analyzing what didn't work, why didn't it work, how much of that was within my control or not, and what could I do the next time around in order to mitigate the risk of things not working out again.
Right. So the more in touch you are with how you feel, I would argue, the better you'll be able to do that. Because when it didn't go well, screw that. I'm moving on.
As long as you can throttle.
That guy's a jerk.
As long as you can throttle your emotions, too.
Okay, right. With the problem, that guy's a jerk. Like, I am projecting.
Right.
He made a decision. Why? Now, I'm feeling the pain of rejection.
Right.
So I need to feel the pain of rejection. If I can feel the pain of rejection, then I can come to understand, like, what is going on? Why did that happen? And how do I handle it differently next time? How do I handle it differently right now? Am I going to write that guy off, or am I going to make another run at it? But, the pain of that is going to stand in the way of me making another run at it. So the quicker I can process that, the quicker I can turn around and say, you're open to looking at a different perspective.
Do you hold on to some of that, though? You get past and you learn, but does some of that stick with you?
Yeah, I mean, the body keeps score. I mean,
right.
It's what we're feeling is important. Another thing that I didn't know when I was younger, that I've come to understand the more present I become to what's going on. I'm feeling things all the time. And I need to, why am I feeling that? What is behind the feeling? One of my spiritual guides has said often, your feelings are a breadcrumb to your soul. It's a breadcrumb trail to your soul. When you're feeling something, there's a reason you're feeling something. You need to take a look at why it is you're feeling what it is you're feeling.
I've actually found myself in rare, unique moments where I'm sensitive and aware of that I'm feeling something. And I'm then also able, instead of what typically happens, which is then you move on, what I'm able to do in that moment, rarely, but occasionally, is to say, I noticed I feel something. What is that feeling? Identifying it. Why am I feeling that way? Let's understand it better. And it has never not served me well. And from business product ideation, like this concept, why am I feeling this way? And now I'm realizing I understand something from the consumer behavior psychology standpoint that's going to influence design or innovation of product. And you can do the same thing in your personal lives where I'm feeling something in this conversation or in this relationship right now.
Right.
What is that?
What am I feeling?
What is that?
Okay. So what is that? Okay. So one thing comes up a lot is judgment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, comes up all the time.
It's fun to judge.
It is fun. And it's momentarily gratifying. Arguably, if I'm in a space of judgment, I'm also going to be judged.
Yeah.
So like, I don't want to maintain a connection to judgment because I really don't want to be judged. So
judge not lest ye be judged yourself.
Yes, okay, of course. And it's a trite phrase, but it's incredibly useful because you're literally, and again, this is going down the rabbit hole, but if you're judging, you are now bathing in the energy of judgment, and you're opening up the windows for other people to judge you. Like, you're in judgment. If you're not in judgment, you're less likely to be judged. You're not with that energy. Like, where is your consciousness? Are you at a low vibrational frequency? I mean, I love that guy's vibe. Yeah, he's got a high vibrational frequency. He's coming into a room and he's just chill and he's okay with everybody. And, he's got a great vibe. He's at a high vibrational frequency. He's happy. He's non-judgmental. He's cool with everything. I'm okay with what is. So I want to travel in that energy all the time. Can I maintain that? I'm human.
Right.
I have human emotions. Those human emotions are important to tie back because they're giving me, it's the way my body is assisting me in understanding what's going on. So I want to be tapped into that and so it will bring me down. Things will bring me down to a lower vibrational frequency. Something happens and I judge. And now I feel like crap because I'm in a low vibrational frequency because I allowed an external to determine my mindset. I don't want my mindset determined by externals. I want my mindset coming from here, the spark of the creator that's in here, my neshama. That's all that matters.
Right. All right. Help me here. Maybe you have a perspective or a strategy around this. And if you don't, maybe we can make one up right now. This moment when you feel something and you're sensitive and aware, and then you're able to recognize and identify what that feeling is and why. This comes up. There's a concept in Judaism called Shmirat Halashon, which is protecting what you say. Essentially, don't speak ill of others. Don't speak about other things or other people, especially because they can often lead to just negative judgment.
Well, it's character assassination. It literally destroys people.
By no means am I great at this. It's a skill, first of all. It's a learned behavior that you have to exercise and practice. I'm trying. I want to try to not be so judgmental. And an area where I find this is hangout, whether that is backyard fire pit, Shabbat lunch, Saturday midday having lunch with a lot of people, and we're having a wonderful time. Great vibe, great energy. All it takes is really one comment that could send the topic, the conversation spiraling downward, right? Into this conversation of judgment and criticism.
Yeah.
And I have found myself in those moments saying like, this isn't healthy. This isn't productive. And I don't feel good about it. And now you have two options. You could figure out how to say something without making everyone uncomfortable. Say, hey, this isn't working for me. Maybe we can move on to a better topic, or I'd rather not talk about this person. They're not here to defend themselves. Right. Which is hard to do.
Right.
And I'm, as a parent, I'm guilty of this all the time, expecting this of our children. When you might get a phone call or hear about an incident where something happened and you're like, why didn't you stand up for that kid? And I understand my kid's like, well, it's not easy when 20 of my friends are there making fun of this one person. I'm like, well, you have to be the bigger person. That's not easy.
No, it's
and
not.
I'm asking a 15 and 17-year-old to do that, right?
That's
not easy.
Not easy.
Not easy for an adult. I'm 44 and I can't do that sometimes, most of the time. And so I don't know how to work on that skill to where I'm protecting my language in a way that is as healthy as I can be, that is productive, that is positive vibes, to build that muscle, that skill set for positivity and less judgment and criticism.
Reminds me of this Hasidic story. Maybe you heard it. A guy comes to his rabbi and he says, I said something terrible and I feel terrible. It was negative talk. I don't know what to do. And the rabbi says, go home, get your feather pillow and climb onto the hilltop out right near town and tear open the pillow and push the feathers out everywhere. It's okay. He goes, he does it, he comes back to the rabbi. He says, okay, I did. Now what do I do? Now go collect the feathers. So part of it is understanding the impact, because we get involved in a lot of things because there's instant gratification. Instant gratification is like what they call body consciousness.
What could be dopamine?
It's my ego. It's like, I'm addicted to the dopamine. It's like I'm addicted to it. Having the long view is easy to ignore. It's, as we were talking about in terms of financial planning, it's easy to ignore the things I need down the road. It's like we're so plugged into instant gratification. But ultimately, instant gratification lasts an instant. It feels good in the moment. And as you said, it feels terrible afterwards. So I want to, if I'm conscious of what my vibrational frequency is, of what I'm feeling, am I feeling low or am I feeling at a higher level? So then I'm able to internally sense what's going on. The question you asked is really, well, okay, great, David, but practically we're sitting around the Shabbos table. Someone is saying something that's negative. I feel everything kind of sinking. What do I do about it? I can remember being in situations and saying, we don't really know the story. Let's move on.
And by the way, not to pass judgment on others, I'm just as guilty of being the one that brings up that.
We all do it. I think part of what we want to anchor ourselves in is a positive mental attitude, a positive mindset, a higher vibrational frequency. There are things that you brush your teeth daily. Does it really matter during the day? I mean, I could just take a Listerine mint or anything to brush my teeth. Well, ultimately, it's the things that you do, the little habits, the atomic habits, the things that you do a little bit at a time.
Somewhere.
The little habits that you do every day that actually have the greatest impact. And so the more I can avoid negative speech, I'm putting myself on a different trajectory. And that trajectory is what's important. We've shared a lot of, personally, we've shared a lot of our personal challenges that we've had over the years, and, really low feelings, a myriad of low feelings. It's like, you want to be able to get out of that, but you also want to maintain as much positivity as possible.
You want to get out of it, but you also want to grow.
And I want to look at it as an opportunity for learning. Right. That's how I transform what could be viewed as a negative experience into a positive experience. And everything we've experienced in life, ultimately, there is positivity there. There's light there. It's not so easy to see it, but that's the challenge. That's the work we need to do. That's why we're here. We're here to transform. And by transforming ourselves, we transform the world. That is our soul's purpose. I was having a conversation with someone in business recently, and they were struggling with the tasks that they were being assigned. They didn't see why this was important. I mean, it's very common in any business situation, which is hierarchical.
Right.
You're working for somebody, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. And I can see why it's difficult and why it's challenging and why it may even be painful, but we don't have the vision of the guy sitting atop the pyramid, the hierarchy. We don't have that person's vision. And so to a certain degree, we just have to sometimes in work, do things and accept the idea that it is what is best, even though I don't have that higher perspective. So even in that work situation where I have to do things someone's telling me to do and I don't understand right now, like I need to know the purpose and meaning behind it. Well, the purpose and meaning behind it is you are advancing the vision. And if you have faith and trust in the person with the vision, that can be enough. Like, I don't know why things happen in the world, but I have a level of certainty that there is a creator and that everything's happening for a reason, even though I don't see that reason. So it's on a macro, global, spiritual perspective, and it's also in the business if you're working. And if you can't handle it, ultimately, you're just an entrepreneur, so just go do yourself.
There's always a catch-up just in case.
Because if you want to have the most purposeful and meaningful life, then you need to figure out what your values are and create a life where you're living those values. And it's not just in my interpersonal or my communal work. It's in my business also. Like, I want everything I do to reflect who I am. If I'm picking up the skill sets, if I'm constantly growing, if I'm constantly advancing, then the money will follow. And again, it's a way of leaning more heavily into who you are. And that's why it's so important to, like, what this whole conversation, what are the transferable skills? What are my skills? Now, we don't all have the same skill set. I need to be present to what my skills are. And everybody's different. We all have different roles to play. And the same thing would go for how I view the world. I want to make sure I'm not viewing the world through someone else's lens. There's another story. This is from a book called Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Debbie Ford. That's one of my favorite metaphors. She says, imagine you're growing up in a house with 100 rooms. And every day you pick a different room. It's unlimited. Every day is amazing. You're playing in a different room. And then one day when your playmate says, I don't like that room. It's cold in there. And you're like, yeah, it is cold. So you close the door. And another day someone says, yeah, I don't like that room. The paint is chipping. So you close the door. You still have 98 rooms. And a teacher says something, and a parent says something, and life becomes a series of doors that you close. What she says in the book is the challenge is to go back and open each of those doors, because behind each of them is a gift for you. So I look at life like that. Like what doors have I closed? What opportunities have I closed myself off from because of a really significant at the time, but insignificant in the big picture?
I'm going to think about that for a long time. I'm going to have to, I'll link the book below, but I'm going to have to read that book.
It's powerful. She also includes a bunch of like guided meditations. I had some real freak experiences like in some of those meditations.
Cool.
Yeah. Look, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to make a lot of them. If you're here, you're making mistakes. I don't care who it is. They're not perfect. Mother Teresa was not perfect.
Nobody's perfect. But, and what I was going to say is that some of those doors that have been closed, you didn't close them. Somebody closed them on your behalf.
Well, they told you.
They told you something.
You bought their perspective.
Correct.
And it's like, but it wasn't your perspective. You were already in there.
You didn't agree to never reopen that door.
Well, we're so influenced.
Yeah, especially at a younger age.
Especially at younger ages.
You think about the things that you were told or said to you, regardless of from whom, and the more important that person was in your life, the more impactful that was. They say something to you, and it leaves an impression forever, whether it was true or not. And if it was true then, doesn't mean it's always true.
I used to have, we're about to really go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I used to, when I was young, and I mean, I think as early as 10, 11, 12, 13, I used to have panic attacks. It's over the concept of infinity.
Yeah.
It's an imponderable. And I would get caught in a spiral of pondering an aspect of infinity. I would find myself in panic attacks and have to find ways to distract myself. Why am I bringing it up? Because I could have closed the door on that because it was traumatic. For some reason, I didn't. But I did because I didn't want to have those panic attacks. I tried to constantly marginalize it and run away from it. And then when I started delving more into, deeper Jewish spiritual ideas, it's the idea of Ein Sof, which is there's no end,
right,
which is one of the names of the creator. It's a Kabbalistic concept. Like we live in a finite world. It's not finite. It's infinite. And our ability to connect to the infinite is a way of us bridging and rising over the finiteness that we encounter. This isn't real. It's not real. You're going to go out to space. You're going to, what was the Jim Carrey movie?
The Truman Show.
Truman Show. So like he sails off and the boat hits a wall.
Yeah.
Like you're not sailing off into space and hitting a wall. It's endless.
Right.
We're literally, and what if I take the molecules and I go down to atom level and neuron, proton, electron? How deep can I go? I must hit an end, right? No, you don't hit an end. It's endless within, it's endless without. We are occupying a plane that is less than 1% of reality because I have infinity in both directions. I mean, so like, again, let's just deconstruct reality. And by the way, at the time when I was having these anxiety attacks, I thought there was something wrong with me. I mean, I'm always like internalizing it. Must be something wrong with me. And there was no one to talk about it. Not only did I not want to talk about it, anyone to think about it, but I really think it was like, the creator calling out, hello, wake up in there. There's a world out here that you really need to be open to. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm just hoping my football team wins on Sunday. Like, so, okay, you can ignore that stuff, but you're not living. Also, like, I think back about like some of the more joyful times in my life and I associate them with places. It wasn't the place. It was the energy. I was feeling the energy of joy. Right. It was set up in that place, but I can set that up anywhere. I can literally experience joy in other places. It wasn't that car, which I have memories of, let's say. It wasn't that house, the house that we grew up in, which we probably all remember the good things anyhow, but like, I have all this joy tied up with that. That wasn't limited to that place. It's not about the place.
There are things like, okay, I was on a ride. That was fun, right? But most likely the memories that we have of vacation or a time and place that were joy, it was because there was uninterrupted focused time that you had with the people that you love.
It's who
that elevated, right?
It was who you were with.
It's because it was an intentional decision to be doing this together right now.
Okay, so do I want to accumulate stuff or do I want to accumulate people?
Right.
Or do I want to work on the relationships that are really important to me? And by the way, as a parent, there's a lot to navigate. As a grandparent,
yeah.
As a grandparent, like, I'm not disciplining you.
Right.
I'm unconditional love 24/7. You're kidding. That's your parents' job.
Yeah, I'll tell you an insecurity. I go to bed most nights regretting not spending more time with my kids.
Right.
Despite even having access to them daily. And I'm blessed for that.
Yes.
Like every night I go to bed and whatever time it is. And I'm like, why didn't we hang out more? Why didn't I talk to them more? I had an opportunity. They were on their phone in that room and I was on my phone in this room. And it's almost every night. And it's kind of like that long-term vision we described earlier, whether it's the diet, exercising, going to the gym, long-term investments, planning for retirement. It's you got to do the work and be focused today for a vision of what you hope to achieve long-term, the benefits. And it's hard. You got to do the work.
You got to do it. I used to, just talking about that, I remember, like, I'm sure it frustrates you when the kids, they don't shut lights off. They're not paying the bill.
No, of course not. Right.
So I was like, it used to drive me nuts. And I'm like, I don't want to show up this way. The lights on means the kids are in the house and that's not going to be around forever. So just like
totally reframe
light on and it's again, an ability to take a step back, to look at it from a more abstract standpoint, to examine my mindset and just say, you know what, I'm going to find a different way to look at this, something that's more positive.
That's a great way to look at it. It's better than my version was, especially with LEDs now. Okay, let me quantify what the total possible output and cost would be annually. And is that worth the aggravation?
Is it worth the aggravation, the high blood pressure, the distance I'm creating with my child? Like, right. No, it's not worth that.
And it fits into like a lot of other categories surrounding raising children, is that it will be important to them one day and they'll figure it out.
Right.
So it's not like a life-saving measure that you need to teach them today. It doesn't matter. They will figure that out.
Right. One of the most, your kids are still younger. So like, but one of the experience I've had that's very heartwarming is like when a kid will say to me, I now hear you when I'm talking to my kids at times. I mean, it's like,
yeah. It took 20 years to get to that point, but yeah.
There's that expression. The older you get, the smarter you get in the eyes of your kids.
I hope to be there one day.
Yeah, God willing, yeah, for sure. The reason I'm here is because energetically we're aligned.
Yeah.
Like we have a similar vibrational frequency. And so when you walk into a room and like we do this unconsciously. We're sizing up the energy in the room. You wouldn't call it that, but that's really what's happening. What an empath does, this is a mark lower. When an empath walks an empath is someone who just feels everybody. When an empath walks into the room, you would think they'd be looking for the people who are the most empathetic. Apparently not. They're looking for who the biggest threat is in the room. And that's who they will at times connect with.
Why?
Because they are threatened. It's like they need, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. It's like, that's the threat. I may not be with them, but I'm aware.
Yeah.
And also it's a lesson for the empath that you need to be aware of your energy and the energy, because that threat is taking your energy. Literally, some people are just energy sappers. Like, you're with them and also you feel drained. Why? Because you don't want to do that.
Right.
Your energy is primarily for you, and then to be shared in appropriate doses with the people you interact with.
All right. So why don't you make a prediction? How do you think I handle those situations or those types of people?
I know how you handle it.
Tell me.
You're drawn. Your attention's drawn there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is mine.
I allow it to happen.
And I'm just saying that's part of the vibrational frequency that's in common. That's why we're connecting. And you want to be with the people you connect with, because look at the possibilities. But you're saying,
the baby steps that I have taken towards being more authentic and in control of my energy, the baby steps are I've started with my calendar, my time. So I haven't yet figured out how to get to the point where it's my energy and my person, because things like I feed off other people's energy in a positive way. Like I'm more creative, I'm more energetic, and I'm more satisfied and fulfilled when I'm with other people. And that's what gets me going. But not everybody is fully aware or respectful of other people.
Yeah. By the way, not their responsibility. It's ours.
That's correct. I'm not blaming them.
Again, I don't know what happened to him.
But I also feel deeply, and I'm like, this person wants my attention right now, and I'm going to give it whether I'm enjoying this conversation or not.
Right.
I'm going to make myself available because I feel for them. They want this time with me or this attention or just to ask an opinion or just to shoot the breeze, whatever it is. And I allow that to happen because I don't have yet the full confidence or control over worrying about dismissing somebody and making them feel badly.
Right. Okay. But, part of our growing is also stopping to care about what people think about us.
Correct.
And because
100%.
because when you
I'm still on that journey.
when you care what people think about you, you're also giving them energy.
Yeah.
So it's like if you start viewing the world as this all energy, and I need to maintain my energy because I really have things I have to do. So there's this idea in traditional Jewish circles. I'm going to go give them some chizuk. I want to give you some chizuk.
Right.
It's like,
which would be like inspiration, strength.
Chizuk
It
is
means
chazak, is
strength.
strength. Sometimes all you're doing when you're giving someone chizuk, you're actually just listening to them. You're giving them an opportunity to speak. When you listen to somebody, you're giving over energy. Now, if you listen too much, it's draining. So I want to be mindful of, I want to give people chizuk, but I want to give people chizuk who I can do it in a balanced way.
Yeah.
That's what transparency is about. I want to be real. We're talking about, I want to be real. I want to show up as transparent. So knowing your unique abilities, knowing the actual light that you can bring into the world is knowing yourself. If you had told me 20 years ago, forget about the right brain, left brain thing. If you told me 20 years ago, David, the ultimate journey is the journey within, I'd be like, whatever. Whatever. Where's my copy of the Wall Street Journal? I'd be, but now it's yeah. In a book called B'nai Machshava Tova, written by the Eish Kodesh, the Piasetzna. So the B'nai Machshava Tova translates into the Society of Positive Consciousness. So one of the things he says is, and this one blew me away when I saw it, when I read it, he's like, every so often you have something like an intuitive moment. You have some clarity. And then you just move on. Oh, that's interesting. No. Stop. Pause. In our words, stick a pin in it. Bookmark it. You want to honor it. You want to give it space. It's a little drop of water that hits you on the head. You want it raining on your head 24/7. So get yourself out of the way and just be present to what you're hearing. Just listen to the messages.
Yeah, it's enlightenment. David, this is super fun. I for sure can talk for another 2-3 hours on this and many other topics. It's been great to have you here. I just want to say thank you again for pushing me outside of comfort zone and inspiring me to do this in person today. It was definitely the right choice.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It was just kind of the sense that I got of things. And I think in your words, first of all, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it immensely. Out of the comfort zone, that's where it all takes place.
Well said. Good stuff. All right. Thanks, David.
All right. My pleasure. Thanks.
That was an incredibly fun episode. As abstract as it was, given the subject matter, it might go down as one of my favorite conversations. Truly inspirational. And I want to thank David Strulowitz for being a guest on this episode. I also want to thank you as our listeners for joining us on this episode of Transferable Skills. Remember, the skills you've gained can take you anywhere. Until next time, keep exploring those transferable skills.